So Sarah is the founder of Grow Remotely, which is a company that really inspires me. They are helping connect people with mission-oriented remote roles. And in thinking about who could really make a difference in how we work and live, what really appealed to me about Sarah, your vision and just how you approach things is the authenticity in which you do things, how real you can be when you admit your failures, when you celebrate the successes of your team, and how you've been able to do that while connecting and growing a company of individuals from lots of different cultures. And so I want to spend a few minutes diving into that today. The first question I have for you is really just, what was the inspiration behind your journey? How did you really get to be the founder of Grow Remotely? How do you distinguish the difference of where you started, and where you are in this moment in time?
Yeah, so I turned my previous companies remote back in 2014 because I wanted to be able to travel and spend more time. I wanted to live in the US and Looky, sorry everyone. And I wanted to be able to travel and can you grab him? Thank you. Okay, we're just gonna have to. Sorry, sweetie. Sorry, everyone. So I turned all of my companies remote back in 2014. I wanted to be able to travel. I wanted to have more freedom myself, and just immediately had such a good experience and realized I could hire people anywhere in the world now because the company's remote. And went on that journey and became like a totally different leader and person through this experience as well, because I started to uncouple the idea of coming to an office and being there a certain amount of hours a day as work versus looking at what are we actually producing? Are we meeting our goals? And are we having a good time? And all of that. And so fast forward to 2018, I sold my last financial planning company, and I was thinking about what do I want to do next. And the thing that I was most passionate about was remote work and helping other companies and people all around the world experience that. And so I basically started thinking about that as a problem and what are the challenges. And what I realized was, even if you want to be remote and you're open to hiring people anywhere in the world, how do you find those people? How do you put a job out and get applicants from all over the world? And so I that's how the idea of Grow Remotely started, and got working on it late 2019, early 2020. And obviously COVID happened, and then things changed even more faster, which was good.
Yeah, I love that. And as you help people connect not just to available jobs, but jobs that mean something to them, I'm curious, how do you find the remote work world shifting, not only because of the past 2 years, but also current events right now, things like hearing about layoffs or more companies remote washing, saying that they're remote friendly when really maybe they're not as remote friendly as you find out later in the interview process. So any predictions on what's going to happen with the remote job market in the next few months or a few years?
Sorry, you just dropped it, or I dropped, I think, a little bit in the middle of that, but what were you saying?
The question was, the job market's been changing quite a lot, with layoffs, with more companies remote washing, saying they're remote friendly, and then pulling a bait and switch in the interview process.
Yeah.
In your mission with Grow Remotely and helping people not just find any job, but a job that's meaningful to them, what advice do you have for people and companies as they navigate this new job market? Yeah. And do you have any predictions?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just going through this huge change happened essentially, and now we're trying to navigate the change. And there's, of course, we had to go remote with the pandemic, and then there's this kind of swing back of oh, maybe we're going to go back to offices, but ultimately no, I shouldn't say nobody, but most people don't seem to want that. The trend is definitely from the candidate side, from the workers side, employees, people side, is to go remote and to look for remote work. And we're seeing that such high percentages of applicants are going toward the remote jobs. And then there is that disappointment happening a lot of the time when it's only partially remote, or it's remote, but you still have to be based in a certain location or something. But we're still seeing so much demand and pushback from this vast majority of people that want to move remote, that I really encourage everyone to stay the course, like stay strong and know that you can find that job that is remote. And the more that we do that, the more these companies are going to be, um, I don't want to say forced, but are going to, actually move to meet the market where they need. And I don't think it's kind of malicious or vindictive or anything. It's hard to change an organization. It's hard to move everything and change everything about the way they've been doing from a mindset perspective, a culture perspective. But I think ultimately the world has shifted and it's just a matter of time. So I really encourage any leaders, company owners that are listening to open up to this and to find the way forward, because there is a world of talent out there. There's amazing people all over the world. We know now that we don't need to be in the same four walls to produce good work. And I acknowledge and have compassion for the challenges that come with remote work, but the rewards are so plentiful that if you want the best talent out there, the fastest way to access that talent is go remote and embrace it, because people really are looking and waiting for those truly flexible remote roles.
Yeah, I love that. And you wrote a blog recently where you were talking about the idea of conscious culture and bringing your inner world into the workplace. And I think this is something that is really interesting, because as people break down the four walls that is the office, in a lot of ways, they're letting people in more. I'm
Hmm.
curious, is there any tactical advice you have for a leader looking to make that transition? How can they learn how to build these authentic relationships through a computer screen?
Hmm. I mean, I think it's ironic how remote work actually, in a lot of ways, broke down the barriers much faster than the office. Because when you think about it, when we went to an office, we all put our uniform on, we all turned up, and we kind of acted the way that everybody acted. I worked with people for years in my past careers and didn't even know if they were married or had kids or had a dog or like things like that. But you'll know right now that I'm in an ice storm in Austin. I'm trying to struggle with daycare. My child was here and my internet connection dropped. So you'll know a lot about me just from this quick like call that we have right now. So it kind of naturally happens, I think, with remote work. And I think in terms of embracing it as a leader and really bringing more of it, more of that authenticity, not just the things that we see, like the dog jumping in the screen, but like our inner world. What are we actually feeling? What are we thinking? What are we struggling with? What are we celebrating? That we do have to be the change. The quote, be the change that you wish to see in the world, is very relevant to this. As leaders, we need to bring our authentic selves. And that's scary because we all have an idea, I think, or many of us have an idea of a leader as having all the answers, having it all together, knowing what's going on at all times, but that's not necessarily the case. I mean, we're just human beings as well. And sometimes we don't have all the answers, and sometimes we're struggling, and sometimes we're overwhelmed. And I really encourage you to share all of those things with your team. If you want to create an authentic environment and you want to know what's going on with your team so that you can support them, you need to also share first and probably more to create that safety for other people by being that example. I want to add to it quickly as well. I saw someone, probably someone you have speaking, I don't know, a quote on LinkedIn recently that said, if you work with people, you work with trauma. And I think that's really true. Like we are moving beyond this idea of coming to an office wearing a mask and being professional and not showing all of that part of yourself. The things that maybe trigger or upset or are hard for us in our personal relationships, they show up at work as well. It's not like we just are immune to those feelings. And so knowing as a leader that we're all complex individuals coming together with all of our past experiences and hurts and wounds and pains, and that comes into the workplace as well, but it's just an opportunity for growth, for healing, for resolution, and for real change that then has a ripple effect out into the world as well.
I love that so much. It reminds me of my own journey as a manager, not just a remote manager, but in general. When I was younger in my career, I felt like in order to gain respect, I needed to keep this distance. And it wasn't until
Hmm.
I learned how to be more vulnerable myself and more open with people that I realized that the respect came from building relationships, and the relationships came from showing myself so others felt safe showing themselves to me. So I love that you just said
Yeah.
that. And
Hmm.
before we wrap up this rapid fire hot seat, in 3 words, what is your secret to making remote work actually work?
Mm. Trust, empowerment. I often say those two together, but trust, empowerment,
And what would be the third one? It'd have to be authenticity or vulnerability, or that act. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Trust, empowerment, authenticity. And we saw a lot of that so far already today. So thank you so much for dropping by and celebrating with us.